Hello, Lainey.
Hello, Grace. How's it going?
Going real
Um,
well.
my crowdcast is speaking back to me, so I was like, what is that echo? It's me. I'm hearing myself. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Writers to Watch. We are the library marketing team at HarperCollins. I'm Lainey Mays, and I'm joined by,
I'm Grace Caternolo.
and we're so excited. We have a great lineup tonight. We do have a note. Facebook is decided to be a little temperamental, so we will be watching there for any questions, but go to Crowdcast. Grace is going to put the link up so you have that stream going as technology does. But don't worry, you can see us on Crowdcast. And be sure to, if you have not already, we had some very eager people, which we're very excited about. Send us questions in that chat, and we're going to get to them later. Anything else I'm forgetting, Grace? Do you want to tell them what we do for lovely listeners who are subscribed to the Crowdcast channel?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are registered to our Crowdcast, you will get one, email reminders of our events, and two, you get early access to download e-galleys on NetGalley without approval. So we send out the e-galley link ahead of time, and you can download, pre-read, or you can read after if that's your jam and you just want a little sneak peek. But yeah, it's a great perk for being on Crowdcast, and it's the best way to keep up with writers to watch.
Lovely. Thank you. I feel very like tell them what they want.
Right.
So be sure to subscribe. You get reminders there. Okay, I think that's pretty much it because we have a packed show today. We have four amazing authors. I'm gonna share the image one more time and tell you that we have Walter Mosley, author of Galen, out May 26th. We have Edward Underhill, author of The House of Now and Then, out May 19th. We have Melissa Albert, author of The Children, out June 2nd. And we have Meg Mitchell-Moore, author of Down with the Shipmans, on sale June 2nd. So we have some kind of like May, summery, June books. And I feel like a few of them are at the beach, and I was doing a lot of escapism reading because the snow has buried us in. If you're on the Northeast, please be safe and be warm out there. And I think we're without further ado, let's get going. So I'm going to invite Walter Mosley onto screen to talk about the new book.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, thank you.
Hi. I'm going to introduce. How are you, first of
Oh,
all?
you're going to introduce me. Okay,
I'm
sorry.
going to, yes, if you don't mind. Not that you really need an introduction, but I would like to cue you up if we can. But how are you doing, first of all?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
I'm on the East Coast. It's
Uh,
okay. It's just blizzarding. That's not so bad.
Maybe it's over a little. It melted where I am. Did it melt
Yeah.
today for you? Okay, good. Okay, so Walter Mosley is one of America's most celebrated writers. He was given the 2020 National Book Awards Medal of Distinguished Contribution to American Letters, named a Grand Master of the Mystery Writers of America, and honored with the Anisfield Wolf Award, a Grammy, and a PEN USA Lifetime Achievement Award, the Robert Kirsch Award, numerous Edgars, and several NAACP Image Awards. He is the author of more than 60 critically acclaimed books that cover a wide range of ideas, genres, and forms. And you're also an executive producer and adapted your novel, The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray, for Apple TV Plus, and serves as a writer and executive producer for FX's Snowfall. Today, we're here to talk about Galen, your upcoming book with Amistad, and I'm going to hand it over to you to hear all of it.
Why, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not going to say a lot. And I'm going to say, I'm going to actually read because, I write, but it's not a lot. I'm really very interested in the use of genre in forming novels. The genre is as old as written tales. In the old days, there were two genres, comedy and tragedy, the two masks of theater. And now there's so many farce and drama, war stories, stories about love and friendship and coming of age. There are period dramas like westerns and swashbucklers. There's erotica, satire, political conflict, gender-specific issues, science fiction, fantasy, and just good old stories about someone on the verge of something else. And I've written many of those things. I've written in a whole bunch of those genres, but I haven't really written a romance. And so I decided I would write a book called Galen, A Romance in Black. Uh, it's a story about a young Black man, his family, his friends, his world, and the glue of love that holds those things together through life and through death. I'm doing that. I'm telling those stories because, well, I'm, you know, the truth is, if you come from a culture that is not the dominant or the you think might think is the dominant culture, um, and you're not in the literature, then you don't exist. There's no, if you don't, if you're not, don't exist in literature, people don't know about you. I mean, it's not true of everything. It's some parts of music too, and some things about music are very informative. But I write a book, like I'll say this is a romance in black. I'm going to have a lot of trouble with that because there are people who will say, well, it's not a romance. And so, well, it is in certain ways a book about love. And that is, if that's the only part of it that I get to concentrate on, then there is a romantic edge to it, and I just I want so much to tell these stories, and on top of that, I want to be able to share those stories with people who might say, hey, wow, that's really different, but it's just like me, or that's something I know, but I've never seen before. Which I think is the one of the central purposes, other than entertainment, of writing. And so, Galen, Romance in Black, about a young man and all the people in his life.
Oh, that's very powerful. Thank you. This book, I've spent a lot of time with it, and I can't stop thinking about it. It was such a beautiful read, and I thought, I don't want to give anything away because I think the joy is such in the read, because but there's so much, just like all the genres you listed. I feel like there's so much to dive into. There's so much
Mhm.
story here, and this family tree really goes wide. Um, and so I think I could have probably read 300 pages on any character in this book, but you do have a whole family at the center and the people who branch off from that. So I wondered why you chose this period of time right at the beginning of the turn of the century, and these characters, especially Galen, the main the name of the book. Why this snapshot, and who did you choose to? Yeah.
Well, that's a really good question because I don't know the answer to that. When you say the turn of the century, I used to think of turn of the century when it became the 20th century, but you're talking about the 21st century, of course. But it didn't start in 1901. No, but it did maybe in 2001. And it was just, well, I'm writing about Galen, who's a young man right now, and the 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 love that informs his life came from these parents who are very unusual, and a really unusual match. And and so if I did, and so I just started writing about them, and then I realized, oh, these are major characters, and I have to stay with them until my Galen can leave the nest and go out into the world. That's why.
Oh, that. Yeah, sorry, I did say turn of the century. It is hard to think of 1999 as that. But okay, thank you so much, and I can't wait to hear more. We're gonna go to our next author, and then we'll all come back and we'll ask some more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna invite Edward Underhill onto screen. Uh, Can you see me? Yes. Hello, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. It's so
Aside from
nice to
being buried
catch
under
up.
snow.
No, I'm a little jealous that you're in LA with some nice weather, I have to say. But it's coming our way. We're gonna get spring here someday, right? Please
Oh,
tell
yes.
me.
Yes.
Okay,
Spring in New
good.
York is one of my favorite times. I'm excited for you.
Yes, like the street culture comes with, like, you just walk out and you never know what the adventure is gonna be, right?
Yep.
Um, well, thank you for being here. I am going to read an intro. We were catching up. Edward came to ALA in San Diego. Goodness, was that 2 years ago? Might have been 2 years ago.
Yes. I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and you spoke on this great Russo panel. That was fantastic. And then you had your first adult book with us, the In Between Bookstore, and that was a library reads pick for the month. So we were like
It
super
was.
stoked for
Yeah.
that. And you came on and talked to us. So I'm happy to have you here for the next one.
Thank you for
So
having me.
course. So Edward Underhill grew up in the suburbs of Wisconsin, where he could not walk to anything, so he had to make up his own adventures. He studied music in college, spent several years living in very small apartments in New York, and currently resides in California with his partner and a very talkative black cat. We'll have some fans here who will want to know about the cat. Um, he is the author of the young adult novels Always the Almost, the This Day Changes Everything, and In Case You Read This, and a book for adults we just talked about in the In Between Bookstore. Visit him on Instagram at Edward Underhill. And we're here to talk about your new book, The House of Now
Yes,
and
The
Then,
House of Now
out
and
May
Then.
19th.
Yes.
Yes.
Um, so hi, it's so nice to be here. Hello, librarians, hello, fellow authors. I'm such a library nerd. If you could see like the giant stack of library books that's currently teetering on my bedside table, you would know. So it's really special to get to talk to so many librarians. So yeah, The House of Now and Then is my second novel for adults. It comes out May 19th. On social media at some point, I definitely jokingly referred to it as summer drama beach book, but gay and trans, which is kind of what it is. It's a summer beach read set on Cape Cod about a trans man in his 30s who's just gone through this terrible breakup with his long-term boyfriend. So he rents a beachside cottage for the summer to kind of get away from everything. But the book is also magical realism. As we were just talking about genres and genre smashing together. So when Harlow arrives, he discovers that someone from his past is behind each door of the cottage. So his old PhD thesis advisor is in the dining room, his dad is in the kitchen, and the ex he just broke up with is stuck in the bathroom. Because if there's one room that would be the absolute worst place for a ghostly version of your ex to be stuck in, it would be the bathroom. He also finds someone he doesn't recognize in the bedroom, Nathan, the nephew of the cottage's owner, who seems to have stopped by to do some repairs. So none of these strange visitors will leave, and no one else can see them, not even Dina, who's the somewhat ornery trans woman who owns the cottage and lives in a house next door. Things get even weirder when Harlow ventures into Provincetown and discovers another version of Nathan working at a coffee shop. Only this version is about 10 years older and very real. The working title my agent and I had for this book was The Therapy House. It was sort of a joke, but it's also kind of true. That's more or less what the cottage is. It's a chance for Harlow to confront the literal ghosts of his past, to let go of what he can't change, to figure out how to build something new and maybe even something better. And writing this book was really kind of therapy for me too. It's a very strange and frightening time to be a trans person in the United States right now. I often feel like I'm standing in two worlds at once. In one, politicians are doing their best to legislate me out of existence. And in the other, I scroll past post after post on Instagram of trans people smiling, each picture with thousands of likes. I remember I came across this one post of a trans guy at a beach, shirtless and smiling, and I thought to myself, like, that's it. That's what I want to write. I want to write a beach book. I want to write myself and my characters an escape. I've been going to Cape Cod for years, so it felt like a very obvious place to set my beach book. I sent Lainey some pictures of Cape Cod that will look very familiar. This is a Provincetown. So Cape Cod, especially Provincetown, as in this picture, has this really long history of being very queer friendly, of being this kind of natural escape for queer people. I remember going to P-Town when I was in my early 20s and pretty recently out, and just having my mind blown by this funky, artsy place that was full of rainbow flags and drag queens and so many older queer people. Plus, the Cape is just a really beautiful place. I sent Lainey some pictures of that too. Every time I'm here or there, I feel like there's a little bit of magic happening around me. The sunsets, the way the waves roar at night, it's so loud they rattle the windows. Summers really feel like they exist a little bit out of the real world there. So it was very easy to picture this magical beachside cottage that exists both in the past and in the present, sitting on top of the dunes. Um, the funny thing about trying to escape, though, is that no matter where you go, there you are. Over the course of the summer, Harlow becomes a part of this new community, all these old queer friends of Dina's, these elders that are so often missing from the lives of queer people of my generation. He falls into a new romance with Nathan, which is its own kind of escape. But every time he goes back to the cottage, there are those visitors from his past waiting for him. And the longer this goes on, the more he starts to think that maybe the cottage is trying to tell him something. Basically, every visitor, his thesis advisor, his dad, his ex, kind of seems to be reliving one like pivotal moment from their shared history together on loop. So Harlow starts to wonder, like, what is it about these moments that matters? There's something a little different going on with the younger version of Nathan, but I'm not going to spoil that for you. You'll just have to read it and find out. Um, if you read my adult debut, the In Between Book Story, you know that that book was really about like trying to make sense of one's past as a queer and trans person, trying to reconcile who you were with who you are, like where you came from with where you landed. But with this book, especially writing it in our current political moment, I was far more focused on the future. Harlow, Nathan, and Dina are all kind of stuck at the beginning of this book. They're all trapped in pieces of their own past that they can't really let go of. But my goal for them in telling this story wasn't about understanding that past so much as letting go of it and building something new for each of them by the end, a future. It's not perfect, it's not easy, but I've always loved writing the complicated, messy beauty that I think is being human. Much more so than the In Between Bookstore, The House of Now and Then is a love story. It's not, or it is, it is a romance. Sorry, it is a romance. It's a family love story. It's a community and friend love story. It's about old love ending and new love beginning. I think that's what I ultimately needed to write even more than a summer beach book. I love writing big cathartic feelings. I didn't just need to write myself an escape. I needed to write myself love stories, however messy they might be, because they're so often about building something for the future, about like something to look forward to and something that ultimately feels like home. So yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you'll check out the book. I hope it makes you laugh, maybe makes you cry, and gives you a little bit of a Cape Cod summer escape, especially if you are on the East Coast and currently buried under snow.
Oh my goodness. I I really don't I don't even know what to say. That was really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing more about the book. I think you found your people who understand seeing people, including stories, and this is your audience to talk to. It's really beautiful. I just want to say about the book, it's spectacular, kind of pun intended, but
Thank you.
charming, and it's got this speculative, that's my fault, twist, but it's not cookie cuttered on. I'm not going to give anything away because I do think you have to uncover that for yourself, but it's really inventive and emotional, and I just think this, like, kudos, like it just
Oh,
held
thank you.
everything at once, and I just wanted to give Harlow a hug a lot of the time. It's a lot to go through, and especially, I mean, it was inventive premise, I think kind of terrifying. I can't imagine going in
Oh
and
yeah,
yeah,
yes. I don't know what I would do if I saw my ex in the bathroom and like couldn't get rid of him. That would be terrible.
yeah, yeah, I definitely probably wouldn't have come back to that cottage. But I was curious, did you know who was going to be behind that door for Harlow when you started writing, or did those kind of come like
Like who is
chicken
going to
and
be behind
eggish, I
each
guess?
door?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that I basically was setting this up. Like, I think it's probably pretty easy to tell from like my description of it as a therapy house that it is about like what you need to let go of in your own past. So I knew that it needed to be his ex right off the bat. And then I kind of wanted to build out these other aspects of his life. It was really important to me that none of them actually really had to do with him coming out or being trans. That's a really important part of the book, but I really wanted to write a book that was about everything else in your life, kind of. Because I think, especially right now, it's so easy for us to feel like we are defined by this one specific thing. So um, I was just kind of thinking about like, what are the things that can really define you as a person? So Harlow's dad is there because Harlow's parents broke up at some point, and like that really can define you as a person. And then it's interesting, like the character that became the PhD advisor like changed a couple times, and it was sort of always about like something about Harlow's career, because like there are these, things that shape the direction in your life, and some of them are the love stories that you're in, and some of them are your family, and some of them are your career. And so I knew I wanted it to be something about his career. um, Finding the right character was sort of, so they were very much like, how can I uncover these pieces of who Harlow is and who are
Yeah.
the right people to help me do that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think also in my head, I'm going to relate to someone maybe of the three. that another reader would relate more to. So I think there's a lot,
Yeah.
or even maybe as you, grow or get older or come back at a different time, you're gonna really relate to someone over another. So that's really smart too. Like I said, I had it was such a joy to read. So
Oh, thank
thank
you.
you. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we will see you back in a minute. Thanks for telling us more. And I'm going to welcome Grace on screen.
Hello, thanks, Lainey. I'm excited to welcome Melissa Albert. Hello.
Okay. Hi.
Thank you so
Hey,
much for
Grace.
being here. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Before I read your bio, I just want to call out The Children is our lead read for summer 2026. So for those who aren't familiar, our lead read is like the book that everybody in the sales team really was clinging on to. So this was The Children for the summer. So we're very excited for you to be here for your adult
Thank
debut
you.
as well. And I'm just going to read a short bio before I pass it off to you. Melissa Albert is a New York Times and indie bestselling author of The Bad Ones, Our Crooked Hearts, and the Hazelwood series. Her work has been translated into more than 20 languages and included in the New York Times list of notable children's books. The Children is her first adult novel, and we're just so happy to be publishing it. And I can't wait for you to tell everybody more about this book that was so atmospheric that I felt like I was sitting within the pages. So I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for joining us. I'm just so excited to get a chance to kind of practice my practice my pitch and just to kind of reach librarians. That's a huge part of my own kind of becoming as a person who is writing, a person who puts reading and books at the center of my life. It all started for me with libraries. So The Children is my adult debut. This is a story told in dual timeline about the children of a famous fantasy author. Who wrote her kids in as the protagonists of her beloved fantasy books before dying under mysterious circumstances, leaving the children orphaned and her book series unfinished. 20 years later, the siblings have not spoken since the night their parents died. And Guinevere, our heroine, is shilling a new memoir kind of about her upbringing, how amazing her mother was, like possibly a not entirely true accounting of being the daughter of this famous author. And mid promotion, she discovers that her brother, who is now an installation artist to whom she has not spoken since the night their parents died, who never ever talks about her mother on the record, is about to open a new exhibition titled simply Mother. So the story of their upbringing in a one of my favorite tropes, spooky, eerie, possibly haunted house in the woods. The tale of their kind of upbringing, which she is presenting as so enchanted, but is in fact a little bit more complicated than that. That story is told kind of leading up to the night their parents died and what really happened that night. And it's interspersed with the story of Guinevere in the present day, counting down to the opening of Mother, kind of searching for her brother, and revisiting her childhood through adult eyes as she prepares to kind of finally reckon with both her brother and the true story of their shared past. Um, so this was inspired, I think, pretty clearly, first of all, by my deep love for children's classics, including probably most especially the Narnia Chronicles. And I've always loved these books, and I always kind of knew I would in some way try to like approach, like write a Narnia book, whatever that was going to mean for me. And then the way I kind of finally found my way in was I revisited all these books I loved as a kid. I revisited them with my own son, and I found them so much darker than I remembered. And it was kind of almost like this like doubling effect because I was remembering what it felt like to read them as a kid, and then I was reading them as the mother. And it wasn't just the strangeness and like the darkness that was already in the actual narratives. It was also the context I had, like the context about the authors and the context, I guess more pointedly, of the children. I think a lot of people know about like Christopher Robin was a real child and the Llewellyn Davies boys who inspired like some of the characters of Peter Pan, they were real children. But there are a lot of examples in children's literature about these kids who were kind of given the strange fame that they did not ask for. And their child selves were kind of like celebrated, kind of trapped in amber, and then they have to grow up. So I was really interested in what that would do to a child whose parent kind of gave them this fame they didn't ask for, and what it is to have to make an adult life kind of outside of that box.
That was a fantastic um pitch for the book. It's so funny saying pitch like that, but it was fantastic. And I think it is really interesting how you know, as somebody who's written children's books before, kind of got to like explore like almost a different side of children's books and looking at it in that way. And I wanted to ask you, what was it like for you to write an adult debut? Did you feel like you had, you know, more like freedom with the themes you were taking on? What was that process like?
I was in the YA world for probably about a decade, I would say, from the time I started writing YA to the time I started writing the children. And all throughout that period, I felt like so strongly, firmly connected to my teenage self. And then I don't know if it's like becoming a parent or what happened, but I kind of felt that tether loosen. And I felt more connected with my younger child self, like the age I was when I was discovering books like the Narnia books. And I realized I didn't think that I wanted to write a middle grade book, but I knew I wanted to write a book that was kind of richly about that part of your life and the bridge between like the person you become when you're that age and when you're discovering these books and like the person you are later. Because I feel like I'm more like my 12-year-old self than I am like my 16-year-old self. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that was kind of like my thinking and it just came very naturally.
I totally know what you mean, feeling more like your 12-year-old self than your 16-year-old self. And I'm just really excited for people to read the children. There's
Thank you.
like it's accessible, but there's so much going on at the same time, and it's meta, and it really kind of breaks out of these genres that we've been um uh you know looking at with like, you know, when you think of gothic, it kind of it defies that when you think of fantasy or things like that. So yeah, I'm very excited for people to read this. We have a lot of great comments in the chat right now. Very excited for this one.
Awesome.
So thank you, and I'm going to
Thank you.
put you back in the virtual green room and welcome on Meg. Hello. Right here I can.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Great, thank you. Excited for you to be here. And you're about to also make us, you know, very nostalgic for summertime, with this fantastic read, Down with the Shipmans. I love this title, by the way. Um, so thank you for being here. I'm going to read a quick bio and then pass it off to you. Meg Mitchell Moore lives in the beautiful coastal town of Newburyport, Massachusetts, home of the amazing Newburyport Literary Festival, for which she is a member of the steering committee. Her busy household includes one husband, a rotating cast of 3 teen and young adult daughters, and 2 exuberantly shedding golden retrievers, which again, if your dog happens to make an appearance, I know people love it when their pets pop in. And I'm gonna pass it off to you to talk about like a rotating cast of daughters and sisters.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And hello to all you lovely librarian people out there. I too came of age going to libraries all the time. We moved a lot when I was a kid. And the first thing we did every single new place was get our library card. So big library fan. And thank you to all my fellow authors. I can't wait to read all of these books. They all sound incredible. So Down with the Shipmans is my 10th novel, and I guess my last several novels have been marketed and sold and really written as beach books. And every year, I think the question comes up, you know, May and June roll around, and there's the question of what is a beach book? Is it a book that you read on the beach? Is it a book about the beach? Is it some combination of that? And now that I've written several books in this genre, I think I've come to realize that it's whatever story you want to tell set in a kind of framework. This book in particular, as you can see from the cover, is absolutely set on a beach. You don't have to read it on a beach, but it's set on a beach. And I know we have a couple slides here. It's set right up the coast from me and on a gorgeous beach called Genesee State Beach on the seacoast of New Hampshire. I'm Massachusetts, so this is just maybe 20 minutes away from where I live. It is one of the most beautiful beaches in all the world, in my opinion. And you can just roll through the slides as you wish. This beach. I mean, all beaches are beautiful. The Cape Cod beaches that we saw are beautiful, but I just love this beach. So this, like all of my books, is a family story. But this one is a very specific deep dive into one family. And the main characters are three adult sisters who lost their mother 2 years before the story takes place. So it's not a fresh grief, but it's a grief that they're sort of learning how to navigate the world with. And they are called back to their home by their father, who has to sell the house that was always their mother's beach house on this beach in New Hampshire. These are my daughters reading. I think this is a setup because this is them just last summer, and two of them are holding copies of Mansion Beach, my last summer book. And I don't know if they ever read, I think one of them read it. I don't know if the other one read the book. So I think it's a setup picture, but I think it's really cute that they're on that beach holding my book. The middle one is reading Emily Henry, in case you're wondering. So these sisters are called back to their home, and their father has brought his new wife, who happens to have been the hospice nurse for their mother as she was dying. So they're navigating all of these sorts of things, and they each have their own complicated lives because they're adults now, but they're thrown back into this childhood place where they're figuring out their relationships to each other and how to deal with their outside problems. And it takes place over the course of 1 week. So it's a compressed time frame, which I thought would be easy to do. And it turns out it's really hard. So I don't know if I'll try to do that again, but it was fun to play with. So this is not a setup that I didn't reinvent the wheel with this setup. I mean, I know that there are books and books and books about beach houses and families and sisters, and I never get tired of them. I mean, I just can read about families forever and ever because, as we all know, families are not all the same. So you can have, I remember that I had a friend coming out with a book last summer, and she said, my book is about three sisters who come home because they have to sell their father's house. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the exact same book I'm writing. It's nothing like my book. All books are different. All families are different. And I'm really grew to love these sisters and their stories. And I hope that you all do too.
Thank you so much, Meg. I love what you just said. Families are not all the same because I have two sisters. So reading this was quite,
Wait, what's your birth order?
We have two brothers as well, but
Okay.
sometimes it feels like separate families. So I got the oldest two are the brothers, and then I have sisters and they're twins. And then
that's a whole different story.
Right. Okay. So it was fun. Like not all families are the same, but you can still see pieces of yourself in this family, which I really loved.
And birth order is so interesting to me, especially
so important.
The same gender. I'm so fascinated by that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to actually read a quote from Ellen Hilderbrand about this about Down with the Shipmans because it was very high praise, and I just want to read it really quick. Meg Mitchell Moore is my own go-to for beach reading, and Down with the Shipmans is a pure delight. It's a family drama with three sisters, some very charismatic dogs, and a glorious setting. What sets Meg's books apart is her writing. It's quick-witted and self-aware and filled with specificity in all the best ways. I'm very picky with what I recommend, especially in this genre. I promise you will love this and all of Meg's other books as well. I just had to read it. It was so good. And thank you so much again for being here. And now I get to welcome everybody back on. And I just want to say this chat is very excited. Our dear friend Jennifer Winberry said it started Down with the Shipmans when I came in from shoveling yesterday. Great time to read a summer book. So lots of
lots of love. I just saw fangirling Walter Mosley. Then I saw Donna said, so happy to see Edward. Unbelievable pathos in your stories. Could talk forever about your books, especially our teens at the library. So glad you're writing in both YA and adult spaces, and magical realism rocks.
So lots and lots of love here.
What else, Grace? What else can I read?
Let's see. We have somebody asked a question for all of you, which we'll get to.
Oh, covers and titles. Everyone in the chat was like, these covers are so I think everyone's just dreaming of the sun, but also the covers are beautiful.
Yeah, so it's really, really exciting. Lots of wows about the children. Just lots of like, wow, really excited to jump into this. So And someone said, I still feel like my 16-year-old self makes me a better librarian, which I think is fantastic. So I'm going to start with a question from Donna, who said, for all four of you, so whoever feels moved by this can start whenever. All four of you, what is the feeling or feelings that you hope readers will take from your book or experience and be left with when they finish it? So excited to introduce our patrons and book clubbers to these four fascinating stories. So whoever's moved.
Mine is nostalgia, for sure. I think that's what came up for me over and over again with this book.
That's really, it's like sort of a fascinating question because I kind of feel like for my last book, I totally would have known the answer. And for this one, I'm like, what is it? But I think it is like a little bit of like that, just that feeling that you get when you like get to step out and like be a little bit separate from yourself when you're like on vacation or on a beach or something. But more than that, I think just there's like something that I find very cathartic about a feeling of like being like kind of happy and sad at the same time. Like I guess that's bittersweet, but it feels like it's like more happy than sad, but it's like very at peace with something and like aware of like having gone through the emotional journey and like proud of yourself for getting there. That's kind of like where I feel like my characters are by the end. And I guess I'm someone who just like feels like by the end of the book, I'm like, I have experienced what the characters are feeling, and that was the point. I don't know.
I feel like mine is kind of nostalgia adjacent because what I want people to remember is that feeling. And I always think of it as like the books you read with your feet on the heater, which is like you're like 9 and you don't have a cell phone because maybe they don't exist because you're my age. Um, and you have your feet on the heater and you're just reading, 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 and the world drops away. And that's the books that I'm like trying to like celebrate with this one. So if I can ever give that experience, that's it. That's like the highest goal.
You know, I it's very hard for me, that question. I've been thinking a lot lately about people reading books. You know, writers very often think that they're the creators of their books, and of course they are before they're sold in the world. But once they exist in the world, every person who reads that book creates it, just like the writer did. And they make up the characters, they smell things, they feel things, they remember things that have nothing to do with what the writer was thinking. And and I and I'm just so I'm really taken by that, and so I believe really strongly, that I can present something as well as I can imagine it and see it and remember it and think about it, and I'm really excited to hear what the readers will think, but I don't have expectation. Like you don't have to feel bad, if you read my book and say, well, I didn't think that at all. I thought this is a completely different thing, because it's wonderful. Also, so many of your writers are so smart. And I mean, a lot of them are smarter than me. And they come up and they say, well, when I read that book, I thought that you meant, and they explain something, and it's way beyond me. But I go, yeah, that's good, you know. So I I try not to have those expectations, I think.
I feel like that's one of the
Yeah.
most special things about meeting readers is when you find out that they made some connection that I never thought
Mhm.
about doing at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel this way about like classics, like older books where, we sit and discuss them in English classes. And then it's like, was that really what they were like setting down? Like all these years later, people are discussing this. So in that way, like everyone's going to read a book differently, right? There's
Yeah.
no way someone, even an author probably can sit down and think of every single way someone's going to take it. So that's a good point. Um, so I kind of have a question for all, but I'm going to start with Walter. So you have all these crime novels and the characters you return to a lot. So what was it like? Like, does it feel not easier, but more comforting to go into a character you know really well and write all the time? Or is it kind of
Mhm.
fun to start off on fresh on the page? Like, what is that experience like?
Hmm. Well, you know, I don't, books are all books are different. I think I figured out. I said I've published 62 books, I think, or something like that, 63, and about 44% of them are crime novels. Because that's my bread and butter. But I, you know, whatever book I'm writing, I'm trying to get an idea. I'm trying to approach an idea. I'm not getting it, but I'm approaching an idea. And so that's the only thing I'm really thinking about. I said, well, am I getting there with this, or am I not getting there? I just finished writing half a short story, and I love the first half of it, but there's no second half of it, so it's not really a short story. And but I had a lot of fun, getting half the way through it, and it was nice.
I love that. All the different experiences, writing many different things. It's nice that you can kind of jump around and do whatever is being called. And so I think in that space, Edward and Melissa writing for younger readers and then kind of doing, I think, Edward, now it's 2 books. Melissa, you've got this first for adults. Like what's going on in your mind when you're writing different books for different ages too? That's a hard question, I know. I'm sorry. But
I think I remember having this when I first started writing the In-Between Bookstore. I remember trying to like talking to my agent on the phone and trying to kind of get at the heart of like what is different about writing someone who's about to turn 30 versus writing someone who's turning 16 or something. And I remember she was like, it's the same. It's just with jobs instead of high school. And in a sense, that's sort of true. But I think for me, I found that the differences were quite subtle in some ways. I think it's also complicated because for so many queer people, fully coming of age is something that's very delayed. Um, really figuring out who you are is something that's very delayed. So there are a lot of elements that so often pop up in young adult literature that are still relevant when you are about to turn 30. Um, but I think like a lot of it was just thinking about the ways that I think when you're a teenager, you are building your own identity sort of separate from your parents for the first time, and you're trying to figure out like who am I outside of all these expectations that have been set up for me. And I think when you're an adult, or at least my experience of being an adult and the experience of writing that as an adult was sort of like, okay, I did that, now who am I, like not just on my own, but like who am I bringing back in? Who am I, like what is the greater community that I'm building? Where do I fit in that? What is sort of like going to sound like so existential crisis, but I think it's like a very millennial feeling, right? Like what am I doing here? What am I supposed to be doing here in the sort of grander sense? Like where do I fit it in the wider world? But those are all like really big feelings to deal with. And I think that like that's what I love writing is big feelings. It's like realizing that the sort of self-discovery doesn't really stop when you're a teenager. It just goes in a slightly different direction. And that's been really fun for me to explore, and just like thinking about where I was at as a teenager. And then the thing that's been really fun getting to write adult fiction has been like, oh, but now I'm writing about where me and my friends are now. And like, how did we get from those like teenage selves to where we are now? And um, yeah, I think I always draw a lot of inspiration. None of my friends are actually in the book. I don't write about people I know, but I draw a lot of inspiration from that, just trying to think like, who are we now and how did we get here?
For me, it was very, very organic. It was time. It kind of came about slowly, and then there was like a real obvious moment, and I kind of knew when I was jumping into this book that it was going to be adult. And I mean, one big difference is I didn't have to like reach for references. Like I just kind of knew I had them. They were right there. I didn't have to fact check. Writing about YA, I found myself deliberately kind of I didn't want to mention slang because that would be very cringe. I didn't want to mention just references that would be old in 6 months. And I still I feel like my first book mentioned like Adult Swim. And I still remember a teenager being like, all right, Onk or whatever, you know. Not that I'm still scarred about it 10 years later, but I have not forgotten. So this time around, I don't have to worry about any of that.
I feel very like my millennials like with the with both answers. I'm like, Oh, okay. All right. The slang and
Uh,
existentialism. Yeah,
I love
great.
that. Thank you. Meg, we have a question from Jennifer, one of our librarians. Really interesting question. I'm actually gonna tack a half question onto it.
Okay.
But first, how do you think your story, the sister story, would have changed if Teresa had been the surviving parent rather than Calvin?
Oh, that's a great.
Without spoilers, I guess.
Yeah, I think it would be so different because I think what I really was trying to do was write this absent person as a presence. I wanted her to be a character even though she's not there. And I think because she was a woman and a mom, I could find my way to do that. And I don't know if I could have done that successfully with a dad. I think it would have felt forced and maybe not real, but I really wanted that mother-daughter connection, and I wanted us to know her even though she's not there.
And that definitely came through in the read. I was going to ask, like, do you feel like you would have been able to write this book about brothers instead? But I feel like the answer, yeah, I feel like the answer was no.
Nothing about the boys. I don't understand them. I don't even know the names of the boys in my town. I feel like I know all the girls and I don't know the boys just 'cause they're daughters, and that's my world. So no, I wouldn't know what to do with a son. I'm sure they're lovely, but I would be lost and I would have a hard time, especially writing the sibling. I could have maybe a boy. I guess I have had boy characters, but I would not be able to do the sibling relationships, I don't think, the way that I can with sisters after observing so many years of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then we had somebody wrote in ahead of time. Beth wrote in for Melissa. So I'm reading this off of my phone. I'm sorry because it's not pulled up. In reading older fairy tales and fables from my childhood, um, many now read much more sinister to me than when I was a child. Think Hansel and Gretel. I was wondering if you, like your characters, had a similar experience, and if so, which particular works?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So my favorite has always been the 12 Dancing Princesses because, well, first of all, because of I think it was, now I can't remember the name of my favorite fairy tale illustrator. I'm sure a lot of you are remembering, but there was like a fantastic illustrated edition of it that I loved. It'll come to me. But it's also like, it's a fairy tale that's also a portal story. And if you think about it, it's kind of like, princesses opening a door to an underworld, to like a hell. And at the time, I just thought it was so enchanting. And reading it later, like part of its enchantment is it's so sinister. Like they dance all night with these masked princes. Like, what do the princes do in the day? I have a lot of questions, and I always love 12 Dancing Princesses retellings. And that is, if I ever were to do like a straight retelling of a tale, that's the one I would choose. And
I
yes, that's very in line with like the revisiting things and finding it darker than you remembered.
Yeah, absolutely. And how many books have we seen published about like, the Grimm brothers tales in general? Like very dark, very messed up. So thank you for that. I think I'm gonna pass it to Lainey really quick.
Yeah, I just want to go back to what we were saying about like every book having its reader, and I feel like Walter, everyone in the chat is like, yes, spot on. We were just talking at our book club at the library about the relationship between the author and a reader, and just making connections make us feel, and how the author's mind sometimes is different than your feelings are the same. Connect. Someone said they'll happily read the half of that story if you're willing to share. Um, and then let's see. Yeah, they're just really great comments all around. I think I don't know if we got to everything, but I think before we wrap up with our, here's your warning, because we always say, what are you reading question, have it in your mind. Grace, is there anything that we did have one more from Beth. So for Meg and Edward, beach house settings form the backdrop. What do you think about the particular setting works so well for exploring family dynamics?
Go ahead.
I mean, I think when you're sort of out of the normal world and like the vacation sense of a beach house, right? There's like something that is a little isolating about it. There's something that is like you're all stuck together in a little town or in a beach house or something like that. And so you do kind of have these bubbles of little communities. They're often in smaller towns. Mine kind of is both about like some of the relationship of the people who are visiting there and the people who live there. but I think they are often like these little bubble communities, and that does kind of, it just takes away all the outside distractions, right? It just really focuses your attention on the people at the core of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the compressed space. It's all these people, especially when you have people who were little girls in a house and then they come back to the house and they're adults and they're bringing their own kids and somebody's bringing a dog and somebody's bringing a different dog and somebody's husband might come visit. It's this used to be, oh, we all used to fit here. And now it's a little harder to fit here. And it's a little wonderful that we're all crammed here together. So I love that dynamic of being squished. You squish some people together and something interesting is going to happen. And then you put it
Yeah.
on, and it's going to be amazing, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I feel like actually that makes me think that then when you do have something where it's like a house, it's like you almost have that memory of the house of like it's seen all of the past, right? So you've like got that built into the setting of like
Right.
to work with in terms of family history. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so true. I think there's that snapshot of like every vacation. You remember this house. You remember where you were. I have so many family vacations where I'm like, no, it was that house. No, it was the one with the stairs. Like it does stick in your mind, I guess. It's so true.
Yeah.
Houses hold a lot of
Fascinating.
things, lots of things for sure.
Yes.
Um, so do we want to jump to our, oh, sorry, Lainey. I don't want to.
Sorry, I was just gonna say before I don't have everyone's full attention. I think I was just writing down some of the themes, and I think that there's so many overlapping things here. There's like, YA debuts we've talked about, or like writing different genres. And we have summer reading. We also have like found family and coming of age in all of these books. So before we ask the reading, quite what you're reading, just wonder if there's anything anyone wants to say, or like library specific. It doesn't have to be, or anything we didn't get to that you're like, oh, I want to talk about this in the book. So I just open the stage for a couple of minutes if there's anything. But I did, Walter, I don't know if you want to talk, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but I think that Robert as a character is so important in this story, and just he's neurodivergent. So you see a lot of representation on the page there, and kind of the grace and patience that he has. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about him.
Well, it's really it's hard, he is neurodivergent. He's a very intelligent guy, but his he like he sees the world, and experiences the world in ways a lot different than people around him. And because of that, and because he's married, he marries this woman who's incredibly brilliant, and she's a doctor, and she does all this great stuff, and he doesn't think that I'll just say this thing about him. He doesn't think that he doesn't understand why she would marry him. Because he didn't ever expect he would get married, and especially not somebody so wonderful. And it's like like reading a book, and um, and she says, well, most of the people that she knows and that she's experienced, what they see in the world is what they've been told or experienced in the past, and therefore, like only like 40% of what they see is really happening. It's something else that's happening. There's something else that's going on, but they see that. But because of the way he has to approach the world, he sees everything that's in front of him. And she feels like that she feels that there's a certain amount of grace in that. It's very challenging, but it's a certain amount of grace. And I mean, that's just one thing about him. And to a lesser degree, his son, GHALEN. But um, but it's trying to it's trying not to it's trying not to make happy endings out of things, but to make things that you can really like. It's like loving your parents. They may not be the best people in the world, but you love them, and you know them, and you see them, or maybe. And it's a great moment. It may not be a good moment, but it's a great moment.
Yeah, I loved him as a character, just like a steady stream the whole way through, just solid. So thank you for explaining some more. Anyone else have some before we're gonna, again, your warning, reading recommendations, which will go, but Vinny, this is our time before we wrap up. Okay. So, Who am I going to pick?
I'm going to be putting these in a
Yes.
catalog. So if you see me just like typing extremely fast, that's what I'm doing. I'm writing what you're saying so slowly and clearly would be awesome. Thank you. I just want to make sure people really love these, so I just want to make sure I get them.
Yeah. It's usually our last question. Everyone's like, but before we go, what are you reading and loving? So I'm gonna start with Melissa.
Okay. Okay. So I read recently King Sorrow by Joe Hill. Oh my God, it is massive.
Hmm.
Oh, you know what?
It's a
It's
break.
right behind me.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. I usually I don't always get through books this thick without breaking to read other things, but this one I could not put it down. It's about a group of college kids who summon a dragon to depose the foe of one of them, and they believe that they have a dragon as a servant for like a one-time use only situation. It turns out, in fact, that the dragon owns them, and that once a year, every year, they will have to kind of feed it a victim. Um, I loved it. I can't recommend it highly enough, but I'm going to stop talking about it so I can recommend my other book. I'm trying to talk fast so everyone has their
No,
turn,
you're
because this is the fun part for me too. I just read Emma Straub's American Fantasy, which is such a good book about I feel like female spaces and like the community building of fandom and how the center of the fandom is like less the point than the love stories that kind of get built up around them. I loved it. And then I kind of went way back and I read Needful Things by Stephen King for the first time on vacation. And it's another doorstop and it's about like a scary, it's kind of like Bruce Coville's Magic Shop, like grown up and turned evil. And as a big Bruce Coville's Magic Shop fan, I cannot believe it took me until now to read it. So I'll keep myself to 3.
I love that. Also, you said you couldn't put Joe Hill down, but I was just thinking, of course you had to because it's so heavy. You had to take a break.
Oh, right. Yes. I didn't hold it over my face because I dropped so many books on my face when I was a kid reading that way.
I've been there. Okay. Meg.
Oh, okay. I just reread Heart the Lover by Lily King because I was leading a book group discussion on it. I know that's how I feel about it too. And I will probably read it 10 more times. I love that book so much. It's so beautiful. So then I had to go back to Writers and Lovers, and I'm starting to reread that too because just because. So those two, and then this is embarrassing to admit, on audio, I'm listening to my very first in my life Agatha Christie book. I have never read one or listened to one, and I'm listening to a fantastic audio version of The Clocks, and I'm loving it. And so now I'm going to go through all those billions of books. And then I love that we talked about YA so much because I read a lot of YA and I really love it. And I read a book called Warrior Girl Unearthed by Angeline Boulay, I think is how you pronounce it, that's set in Michigan, in Native American community, and there's a mystery to it, and it was fantastic, and I loved it.
Okay, Walter. Walter.
So,
Walter, do you want to tell them a book that you've been reading or really enjoying?
There's a book called The Shape of Dreams by April Reynolds. It's an extraordinary book. It's about Spanish Harlem in the 80s. All kinds of things are going on in the 80s. There's a crack epidemic that's starting there. I was there in the 80s. And the Mets, when the World Series, and a boy gets found by this woman who, sometime in trouble, sometime not, but she finds a dead boy under a pile of trash, and it's about her and 2 other women, the boy's mother and another woman, and their experience. It's really a very much a novel about place and time. A lot of times, writers don't think so much about that, or they don't put you in a place and a time and you feel that you're there. And she's a wonderful writer. And I like that book. And then I'm rereading The Plague by Albert Camus. I love The Plague. I love the way that he works with heroics. He is kind of anti-heroics, and I've been trying to write about that lately, and I realized I have to go back to that book. I was thinking, that it's so true that, like somebody will come up to me and they'll say something like, I read, some, Moby Dick. And I said, really? How many times? And they go, well, once. And I go, Really? Like, you can't read Moby Dick just once. I mean, because there is a thing about reading over and over again, which really, um, there was a time where there was only like, a couple of hundred books that you had to read, and everybody had those 100 books, and they just kept reading them. And it might sound kind of boring, but actually, the more you read something, the deeper you get into it, the more you look. I mean, same is true with movies. The more and more you can't ever get everything in one pass through. You know. Anyway, yes, those two books, The Plague, and The Shape of Dreams.
I love that. Thank you. Edward?
So I do this thing where if I'm drafting a particular type of book, always hit a certain point where I have to read something that like the only things I can read are wildly different than that book. So I feel like all the books I'm going to say are going to sound nothing like the books that I write. Um, the closest one to the book, these types of books that are like the one I just talked about, that I read recently that I really loved was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's sort of, I think, was one of her more like family drama beach book kind of feeling books. It's like a little bit quieter in some ways than some of her more recent ones. But I really loved the family dynamics of it. I really loved how much it dove into each character. And then I'm one of those chaos readers that checks like 10 books out of the library and reads them all at once. So I am currently reading Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I'm currently reading Woodworking by Emily St. James, which is a recent book about a trans woman in sort of a small town in, I think it's one of the Dakotas, but it's really, really interesting so far. I'm really liking that. What else am I reading? Yeah, I feel like those are the ones that I can remember. I've like gotten far enough into that I definitely want to like, I'm definitely enjoying them.
Awesome. No, I think that totally makes sense that you read different books when you're writing. I totally get that.
Yeah.
I will say the chat says, I have dropped books on my face. No lie, we're there with you. The librarians get you. But also, yes, books become your personal friends when you read, when I reread, is what someone said. So Grace dropped that in the chat. So all of the librarians have all of your reading recommendations close at hand. I don't know how Grace types that fast, but very go you. Thank you so much. I just want to say that I know, before I go, I'm going to do quickly, and it will be very, very quickly, besides this lovely dog picture. Next month, the 19th, we will see you for our next round of authors. It's going to be wonderful. We'll tell you more about it in the coming weeks. So right here, this link, we'll see you again on the 19th. But I just want to say it was an amazing night. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about wonderful books, all the overlapping themes. But I think at the center, it's about discovering a story, finding your own story in a read. And I think we have all these wonderful words from our authors here who have given us just that, stories to lose ourselves in. So take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all.
Thank you so
Thanks a lot.
much.
Thank you.